How's it going, everyone? Session here. Welcome to Final Fantasy XIV. In hypeness of the upcoming Savage tier for Tier 3 Pandemonium 9 through 12 coming out very shortly, I wanted to take an idea to kind of go through each of the circles of the raids that we've been through, try to theorize some of the ideas we might see for mechanics in terms of the Savage variation of the fights. Now, obviously, we hadn't really seen all of that there is to come for the mechanics, so I'm definitely very curious to see what might we run into mechanically speaking if we were to get it in the Savage variants. So let's check it out. This is currently P9 normal. This was me going in as a tank, just me running it with a couple friends, and then we just try to give it a shot and see what's going on. Hmm. Now the platform is definitely going to be the same size because at least unlike P5, the arena doesn't change mid battle, so it's AoE. This will stay the same, although it's purple, and I'm very curious if there's anything. Oh, you know what actually might be crazy? Um, so during this part at least, the boss is known to basically consume a soul, and then the soul will become, the next mechanic of it all. So the thing about this fight at least is that there isn't actually a change as far as I think for like the mechanics that execute during certain moments when he uses ravening, which is when he basically I think consumes a soul. Um there's I think there's three. There's the guy voice that he starts off in. There is at some point a time where it changes to like a female voice, and then there's the green one for sure that I know he kind of gets on all fours like a beast. Now I'm wondering if when consuming like the soul, if the platform changes essentially. Because ravening here, see, he basically eats a blue soul, and then now has infused with this. Now I do definitely think, see, so now the female voice came out. Now I definitely think that as a result of them consuming a soul, it might do something very like kind of P8-esque, if you remember. So during the normal version, when he transforms into either like the centaur thing or the snake version, he didn't have a follow-up attack once the transformation was completed. I do think that in the savage version, similar to P8 with this one, it might do something like that, even if it's like an AoE. I'm not too sure, but the hands are currently imbued with like that element. It looks like it's like a sword icon right underneath the word such, so I feel like there might be, it could be like a cleave attack that's point blank, so you got to get out of the hitbox or something when it transforms into the female voice. Now I feel like if you are gonna see the AoE come out from this boss and the platform changes, instead of it being like a circle, I almost wonder if the inside will become like the not safe area, kind of like how the outside is, but it's inside, or if it's like in a plus shape. Like I'm very curious as to how that might actually change. So let's see. So Fire 3 is still the same, I'm pretty sure. So we got these mechanics. If the it appears in front of you, the AoEs will get larger. That's definitely going to stay the same as it is. Um, I do think that it might be a little bit different though. There might be like another mechanic in time, like a stack or something of the nature. So we'll see. Blizzard 3, same thing. The platform changes, and there's kind of a donut, and then when it gets enhanced, it gets shortened. I definitely see that to be a thing. I kind of expect them to even do like an in and an out as well. I'm kind of curious to see like what it might boil down to though. So, and then of course you're gonna have both of them together. One will indicate you don't take it out like that, but you do at least take it and adjust accordingly. So I feel like that'll be a standardized mechanic. Global spell is an AOE that has a bleed. This will definitely hit harder, but I do think that this is going to be the more important AOE versus it being like a mechanic that, an AOE that shifts mechanic wise. So now we have Ravening 2. Let's see. And now it's red. See, so that's a second color though. And now it's the guy voice. So I totally can foresee if that happens and everyone gets like a like an AoE on them or something like that, like spread out. Rockbreaker, I think that'll be the same. I do believe though. Then we have these markers. These will definitely they're kind of split up in four different quadrants, right? So you have the one over here, the one over here, and they're kind of safe first in into cardinal spots, and then there are also safe in um it's first a cardinal safe and inner card safe, right? I do think that it might combine fire with that, and everyone gets fire and needs to spread. So if anyone's kind of overlapped with the fires, then that's it, right? So you kind of have to do uh parties in terms of like four sets of two, so that way everyone always has to resolve a fire with the other mechanic. I totally see that being a thing. And then you do the rotation, and it might kind of be the same. Archaic demolishes 2 stacks. So chances are it's gonna be 4 stacks with that mechanic, and you literally have to. It might be four stacks, and then it does it twice. So you got to basically do a lot of healing in the middle of that, because again, all of the attacks that we use primarily for like AOE based things has increased in size. So I can totally see them taking like an AOE, or doing like a Lily Bell, where mechanics like that might require you to actually do extra healing during that scenario. So I can totally see that being a thing. Um, and I expect it to actually be very, very good. So we'll see. Ooh. So that was a little bit of a lag there. So the Gluttony's Augur is the attack that it'll this transforms the platform on the outside. But I think that because it's currently under the male variants, it's kind of like a trick. So because it's the male soul that use the AoE, we get the lightning outside, right? Now, I think that because if it was done by either the female or the beast, it might actually change how the platform is laid out. I'm very interested to see how that might come into place. We obviously won't see it in normal, so even if the girl does the AoE, we won't actually see it take into effect. Ascendant Fist is a tank buster. This will probably be a There's probably going to be like a vulnerability there. Might require a swap. That can be a thing. Or it just attacks each tank individually. Rear combination, it does the donut, and then the back cleave. I can totally see it using both. So front combination is point blank around the body of the boss, and then a front cleave. Whereas rear is a donut and a back cleave. I can imagine them doing it. It might say like rear and front, or front and rear, right? And then essentially it's going to be 4 sets of attacks back and forth, or it'll combine it with. I might combine it again with being able to, again, throw in like a stack or like an AOE kind of thing. So I can see that being a thing as well. Let's see. Ravening is coming again. I think this is the beast form. Yeah, so green is beast. Now, at this point, the boss does a screen. See, because there's no follow-up, but it does go on all fours. So, okay, so because Charybdis is activating, I feel like Charybdis is actually part of the sequence of the AoE of the mechanic. So it's not like the boss will go into beast form and then um just immediately use this as like the follow-up, like this is part of the beast mechanic. It's not used in transition to it turning into the beast. Also, I just realized that it changes the actual name from Beast Lament when it used Ravening. So I wonder if we can actually see um when it uses, yeah, see, Mage's Lament. That's the male voice. And then there it says Martialist. Oh, okay, you see, so there's 3 different laments that are being used for the mechanic. Now this actually makes more sense to me. So you have Mage's Lament, Martialist Lament, and you have Beast Lament. So each of those will actually have its own sequence of mechanics. So Charybdis, what's actually funny? I haven't actually figured out what this does. It obviously drops 4 puddles that are stuck on the floor. They look like wind puddles, but I don't know what they do. If you I never actually experimented to touch the inside of that and figure out what happens. All I know is that if you have it, you put it down somewhere. So you probably have to put it down in very certain places. I can imagine if you combine it with the Martialist's ability with the Earth Rockbreaker, I think it's called, right? The Archaic Rockbreaker. It'll probably do that, and you probably have to put the Charybdis in like the safe spot for it to like stay there with that and then have that become what it is. So that way you kind of create a safe space for everybody. And then, like, the question that I wonder though is that, because again, the Ravening is basically being used to transform the Lament for which boss it's going to use mechanic wise. So it's not going to necessarily have like, you know, Rock Breaker occur under the beast. It's going to be, um, as it transforms with the form, it'll actually use the abilities for that form in particular. It won't necessarily just use all of them at will. I don't think so. It'd also be kind of nuts if there's a fourth one that we just don't even know. Because I think there's only 3 that are showcased during this normal version. Then you have the stack, which I understand. Lands. There is a tank buster that comes up with this as well, so it's kind of similar. Here it is. So Gluttonous Rampage literally is a tank buster you got separated from there as so. And then because of the distance I create from that one, it'll attack me, and then it gets the middle. Now, that's not going to necessarily affect the rest of the party, so you can probably uptime that in a way. So, like, if my co-tank is over here and I go over here, the party can probably stay in the middle in between the 2 jumps, and that way they're out of the middle and away from the impact marker attack, and then they can stay doing uptime stuff. I can totally see that being a thing. Or rather, because party usually is south, the tanks might come over to the southwest and southeast side to bait the jumps, and then that way everyone stays safe. I can see that also being a thing. Now, Comet is very interesting because it literally reminds me of Behemoth and Labyrinth of the Ancients. So it drops the 3 comets, and then Ecliptic Meteor is being cast, and so you have to go behind the one that's obviously not glowing. And then it does the same thing like it does in Ruby Weapon, where as it explodes, it now becomes marked and it'll explode. And then there's another tank, or another stack marker rather. I don't really know how they're going to necessarily use that mechanic with anything. I'm actually not too sure. Unless there's multiple meteors, that would be fascinating. But I'm honestly not too sure. I'm actually not too sure. You know what'd be kind of crazy actually is if it does the meteor, but like with the fire. Like it'd be crazy if it uses the comet and drops the comets, and then they stay there for like a extensive time. Then the boss does ravening into like, the mage form, and then does fire. You know what I mean? And then you got to use it behind, because it'd be crazy to actually use the meteors. It'd be crazy for the meteor to actually be procted on like a person versus the boss, and that way you actually use more meteors, because there only being 3 is not really consistent to anything. With what the mechanics are for the party, it makes more sense that it comes from the boss. But what would be nuts is if, since we just got Golbez, and not to spoil anything per se, but, if they mark like a tank, a healer, and a DPS each with a meteor, or if it's just 3 people randomly in some way, combination, shape, and form, you might have to actually place them down and then run. And they probably can't be too close to each other because they are perfectly aligned in kind of like a triangle formation covering the cardinal spots except for one. So it'd be interesting if they actually force you to actually bait the comets to land in a certain place for a mechanic that's been used with them later on. Okay, so Ravening coming again. So the order was Mage, Martialist, into Beast. We're going back to Mage. Disturbed. There's Ice Flame Summoning, which means that so Ice Flame Summoning, it's gonna probably proc. So I wonder if if it's Ice Flame and it enhanced ice, I wonder if they actually don't give you the telegraph of it being ice, but the name will give you the telegraph. So because it's an Ice Flame, it's gonna be ice and getting larger. But if it was Flame Ice Summoning, that means that fire would get larger. That would be fascinating too. Because Ice Flame Summoning is happening again, but this time it's the same name, but because we saw ice appear, now fire will appear. But in the Savage version, it most likely won't do that. It might instead just have the names be backwards. And then Dual Spell. Dual Spell is the one that I don't actually know. The way how it's being portrayed, it makes sense that it's both at the same time. But I wonder what's the prompt for how you would know which one it is. Because I actually don't. I don't expect it to actually give you the indication, like on your screen, of which one it is. Even though they still distinct it by like shape and color, so there is a difference you can tell. But I actually don't know how they would actually indicate that difference in a way, shape, or form. So I don't know. Because by this time, for the normal version, we have seen all of the mechanics for the fight. Yeah, so he's going to do Rockbreaker again. It's going to be a pushback. And then these are safe. Rotate over. Because I can totally see there being... There's front combinations, so the point blank, it's to the front. I can totally see them using the Rockbreaker with fires. And again, here's the thing. Okay, so this is actually a great example of this. So Gluttony's Augur is gonna happen right now, and it's under the Martialist's essence or soul. So the AoE stays purple, but I don't think that that's deliberate. I think that it'll actually change in the Savage version. The AoE might change color too, just to kind of keep it consistent with that. But I wouldn't expect the platform to stay as it is now, because it being purple specifically is interesting. So I don't know. I'm very curious actually. I even wonder, because the normal version makes it feel like it's just this on repeat, but just bouncing. The combination of attacks that how it commences is going to be back and forth, and that's a thing. And I get that, but I also feel like it'll actually throw you a loop of how it's actually going to function. So I have no idea. However, I do think overall, I think people will expect this fight to be the easiest of the three. I do think that there will be a mechanic that we haven't even seen at all in this normal version to be used in the actual Savage version, but we haven't actually seen it, at all to actually know how it's going to function. So that'll be the curveball that we'll have to deal with collectively as a party. But aside from that, though, I do think that overall this will be the quote unquote the easiest raid out of the three, mostly because of, I guess, the mechanical execution, but I think additionally because there might not be all too much more than we'll have to see outside of the normal version. Everything has already been, I think, displayed for the most part, but there are some hidden things that we haven't seen, and I think it has to do with the soul collection that the boss's primary function is based upon. So, I mean, I'm very curious to know anybody's thoughts on what they might expect to see with this. I'm not too sure. I don't know if it'll actually be related to a fight in particular. I mean, if we're talking about like fire and ice, hmm. There is one fight that I think it can be related to, but it doesn't immediately come to mind. But it does give me a vibe from a certain fight. I just don't remember which one. Either way, we'll definitely get our hands on it for sure. Get a little bit more of like a glimpse into it all as well. So, like I said, let me know what you think. That's E9 theory in a nutshell. So after this, we'll take a look at some E10 and see what we got underway. So thank you for watching and take care.